Hello and hi and good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to my teaching. Okay, let's first look at the information. Today I'll be teaching class 6 and the topic that I'm going to teach is generating hydroelectricity. Subject science and class strength. I have 45 students in my class and durations I'm going to teach for 50 minutes. And skill focus is giving instructions to organize the activities, and previous knowledge is type of energy. Okay guys, let's look at the learning objectives. So these are the objectives that I wanted to acquire during my teaching. By the end of the lessons, each child should be able to define the term hydroelectricity precisely after input done in the classroom by the teacher. Explain the process of generations of hydroelectricity briefly after the activity. Write down at least 4 usage of electricity in their own words after the explanation done by the teacher in the class. So these are the some of the learning objectives that I want to acquire in my teaching. Okay, now guys, let's look at the overview of the lesson plan. First, lesson introductions. Here I am going to talk about how to introduce the lesson and what are the techniques that I'm going to use to introduce the lesson, and lesson development. So in doing this lesson development part, I'm going to talk detail about the topic like definitions, process, usage and all. Then after that I have short activity then come to the lesson closure. Hello, good morning class, how are you? So today, before I begin my teachings to you all guys, I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay? Can you look at the picture in the corner? Can you see the picture? Okay, what is that? What is it? Do you have one at home? Okay, what make it glow? Okay, definitely. Okay, from where do we get that energy? So these are some of the questions that I'm going to ask them before I before I introduce my lesson. It's always important to ask them and test their some of the prior knowledge. Then I'll write my topic on the green board and say, today I'm going to teach about generating hydroelectricity. Okay, now during lesson development, it is always very important to revise the previous lesson. So guys, what did we learn in the last class? Then the expected answer would be types of energy. And also it is very important like to check their prior knowledge on the topic. So before I teach them what I have to teach, I will ask these following questions. What do you understand by the term hydroelectricity? Have you seen how hydroelectricity is generated? So if they say yes, then where? They might have seen somewhere else. So they might say the places. So this is very important. And can you describe it? and I'll let them describe how it looks like, where it is, that kind of thing. Then I'll write the definitions of hydroelectricity on the chart, and I'll give the definitions. It's the energy produced by generator with the help of water is known as hydroelectricity. So hydroelectricity. So this is the definitions of the hydroelectricity. I'll write on the green board and I'll let them copy the definition of hydroelectricity. Okay, now then after that I'll proceed with how hydroelectricity is produced. I'll be talking here about process of generation of hydroelectricity. You can see in the picture that actually the animations, it shows how hydroelectricity is produced. Anyway, let's look at the description as well. Water is stored in a higher altitude with the help of dam. Look at that black arrow, that's called dam, and usually it is blocked by gate, we call it gate, and water at a higher pressure, the dam will block, and as soon as we open the gate, when the gate is opened from the dam, the water rushes to the penstock. Black arrow shows the penstock. As soon as the gate is opened, the water rushes through that penstock. Water heats the turbine which drives the generators. Look at that black arrow, that's called turbine, and this turbine is connected to the generator. When the water hits the turbine, it starts rotating, and which in turn drives the generator. Generator produces electricity, and transformer transmits the current through the transmission lines to the cities and the houses. Okay, the black arrow shows that's called generator, and that's called transformer, and that's called transmission lines. So this is how exactly the hydroelectricity is produced. I know there are other ways as well, but then today we are talking about how hydroelectricities are usually generated. Okay, now guys, it's time for activities. Okay, today we have very simple work, just a question and answer sessions, and not much complex. Now first let's look at the instructions. Please listen to the instruction very carefully, because without understanding the instructions you can't do your tasks properly. You'll work in a group of 5 students and write the answers for the following questions. Okay, I'll count 1 2 3 4 5, or 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, all the students, 45 students. Then I'll then all ones will come here, 2 will come there, and 3, and so on. So all of you will stay in group of 5, and I'll write those questions on the chart paper, and I'll display on the board. The question is, define the term hydroelectricity. Now you have to define the term hydroelectricity. What is meant by that in your own word, and explain how hydroelectricity is generated. Now what's meant by how hydroelectricity is generated, which means you have to explain the process, even if you can draw as well. Good. Okay, write down at least 5 usage of electricity at home, where and how we use electricity, you have to learn that. And we have learned that during our previous lessons, we have learned about renewable resources and all. So do you think hydroelectricity is renewable resources? Explain. You have to justify, you have to give a reason why it is renewable or non-renewable. Okay, so are we clear with the questions? Okay, now to do this work I will provide you around 10 minutes. Okay, so during the while they are doing their work, I'll be moving around in the classroom. I'll be helping them. I'll be seeing how they are working there, how they are doing their job, and how they are carrying out the work. If they have problem, I'll try to help them out. As a follow-up activity, I'll once they have done that work, I'll call them in the front and I'll ask them to share their answers, like what's been the hydroelectricity. They might have definitions of what's been the hydroelectricity. And for another group, I may ask them how hydroelectricity is processes, and like then for other groups, like usage of the electricity, usage of the electricity at home. Then for another group, I'll ask them how hydroelectricity is generated. So generally we don't have much activities, just a simple question answer sessions. So with this very simple, very short and sweet teaching, so with this we come to the lesson closure. Now during the lesson closure, teacher will close the lesson by playing this game called password game. It's very, sometimes being a teacher, it's always we have to be very dynamic, always asking questions, doing the same thing will always make them bored. So sometimes if you could bring out incorporate something called game, sometimes quiz, and different, rather break down that monotonous teaching in the classroom. So I'll ask them, I'll play this game called password game. I know you guys are wondering how we play this. Each child will say something they have learned and leave the classroom, which act as their password through the door, which means I'll be staying in the nearby door, and each child will say something they have learned in the classroom. For instance, they might say, today we learned about hydroelectricity, and they will define they will say the definition of hydroelectricity, or some other will say that usage of hydroelectricity, or some will say, might say a process of hydroelectricity, and some might say renewable, it is a renewable resources, because water they never get run out and kind of thing. So this will really help them. So unless they say something about that particular lessons, I'm not let them go out. So this act as a very interesting through game, but as well as I'm helping them with revising the knowledge. And yeah, with this thank you for being with me, and I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.